This is a special presentation of Things I Want to Know Voices, brought to you by FMS Studios. Karen Silkwood had proof, names, numbers, and documents that could expose the truth about Kerr-McGee's nuclear fuel plant in Oklahoma. On the night of November 13th, 1974, she was driving to meet a reporter from the New York Times. Beside her in her 1974 Honda Civic sat a folder filled with evidence, proof that they falsified records, safety violations, and the missing plutonium. But her little car, barely more than a tin box with vinyl seats, wasn't built for dark highways or midnight missions. She drove alone into the blackness with the hum of the engine and the weight of the folder being all that she had. Karen never reached the reporter. Her car struck a culvert in the darkness, quietly, violently. There were no skid marks, no sign she'd even braked. And the folder? The evidence. Well, it disappeared, as though it had never existed. Before she became a headline, Karen Silkwood lived an ordinary life. She grew up in Longview, Texas, where she married young, had 3 children, and watched helplessly as her marriage dissolved. With her children staying behind with their father, Karen moved away, searching for something very different. Hopefully a fresh start, or maybe just a different set of problems. She took a job at Kerr-McGee in Crescent, Oklahoma, handling plutonium rods used in nuclear fuel. It was supposed to be a new beginning. Instead, she stepped into a darker reality. Inside Kerr-McGee, the air was stale and metallic. Fluorescent lights flickered and hummed constantly, casting the rooms in a pale, sticky glow. The radioactive dust coated everything, unseen, silent, and deadly. Every day, Karen slid her arms into the heavy rubber gloves attached to her glove box, her face inches from the thick glass. The plant, humming with an industrial heartbeat. Somewhere a vent rattled, and the metallic taste never left her tongue. She noticed particles drifting in the box. A speck of dust? Or could it be death itself? Workers joked about glowing in the dark, but it was more resignation than humor. Radiation badges were dismissed by supervisors as irrelevant inconveniences. Safety was compromised daily. Glove boxes, thick-walled chambers meant to protect workers from contamination, were cracked and leaking, as they were the only barrier between the humans and the plutonium they worked on. And when they failed, poison drifted into the air. Records were easily and repeatedly falsified. Plutonium disappeared by the ounces. More than enough to raise alarms at the Pentagon, and enough to make a nuclear weapon, if it ever left the plant. Karen's crash triggered a storm. The Atomic Energy Commission and the FBI arrived first. Then, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Government Accountability Office dug in. Agents in suits and gloves walked the plant floor, counting, testing, and documenting all the failures. In a congressional hearing room, before the rows of silent faces, a member of Congress asked,
"Are you telling this committee you lost track of ounces of plutonium?"
"We don't believe it left the plant."
"That's not what I asked."
Well, the findings were damning. A culture of negligence, a company that had lost track of its own nuclear material, and workers contaminated without protection. Kerr-McGee's nuclear operations were a liability too big to ignore. The Cimarron plant closed in 1976, with its gates chained and its reputation shattered. Karen's contamination, it began slowly. It started with dust on her gloves. It trace on her clothes, then escalated. By the end, plutonium was detected in her lungs, her blood, even in her digestive tract. Not only that, but her apartment was radioactive. The food in her fridge, the bathroom sink, the toilet seat, all hot. She hadn't even worked in the faulty glove box on her last day. But the contamination seemed to follow her, as if someone wanted it to. Once she discovered the contamination, she would stare in front of her fridge, looking at the butter, leftovers. She didn't touch anything. She just closed the door slowly, like it could explode. She had confided in friends. She said doors were left ajar, papers shifted, cars tailed her. She made sure she made copies of everything and hid them all around, at home, work, in her car. She checked locks again and again. On November 13th, she attended a union meeting, met with her lawyer, ate dinner alone, and drove south on Highway 74. That folder of evidence was her shield, as well as her target. She drove with the windows cracked, the road empty, the fields on either side silent. Her badge had read normal that morning, and for a moment she let herself believe maybe the worst had passed. And as that road stretched flat and her headlights lit the fence posts, an impact. She hit a culvert head-on with no skid marks, both hands still on the wheel. Yet the evidence was gone. Her autopsy blamed Quaaludes, said she fell asleep. But on review, the dose in her system wasn't enough to stop her from fighting to the end. Now the fallout went far beyond one crash. Karen's contamination and the investigation it triggered uncovered the kind of negligence that could have fueled a disaster beyond Crescent. Ounces of plutonium were missing. Enough material to build a dirty bomb, or worse. Federal agents and congressional committees documented the rot inside Kerr-McGee, the plant closing quietly in 1976. Karen's family won a $10.5 million judgment against Kerr-McGee, but then it was overturned on appeal, finally settling for just over $1 million. The executives faced no jail time, and no one answered for the poison in her body or the other workers. But it did spur a Hollywood movie with Meryl Streep, but no film could capture the dread of the plant, where every breath could kill you, or the knowledge that the same material fueling America's nuclear power could also vanish into the shadows. So Karen Silkwood wasn't perfect. She was stubborn, flawed, unrelenting. She asked the questions no one wanted to ask, and for that, maybe, she died on a lonely road. As the plutonium remained in her lungs long after she was gone, her locker stayed closed. Her chair at the union meeting was never filled again, and the missing documents never recovered. She didn't ask to be a symbol. All she did is ask to be heard. But the truth still lingers in the dust, in the records, and in the silence that followed. The woman who glowed in the dark. The story of contamination, corporate betrayal, and questions that reached the halls of Congress and still burn like a fuse. Thank you for listening. If you like this little story I told, send me an email congratulating me on being a good narrator. If you hated it, send me some hate mail. I'm okay with that too. I'm Paul G. See you later.